Wendy Williams has had to go to extraordinary measures just to be able to live and enjoy the benefits of her money that she spent decades making. First, she had to plot to stop her ex-husband and his baby mama from trying to live off of her hard work for the rest of her life. And then, just when she gets that situation sorted out, the actions of her own son ended up getting her embroiled in a guardianship that makes you understand why James Bond told Eddie Murphy to bury his money in the backyard. Wendy is finally making headway in her bid to be released from this guardianship, as the judge recently ruled that while Wendy waits to undergo further competency tests, she can be moved out of the memory unit lockdown that she is currently confined to, and instead reside in a condo where she will be free to come and go as she pleases. Now, regardless of the court's intentions, this is a huge deal, considering that recently, according to some reports, Wendy had to write the word help on a scrap of paper and throw it out the window to seek assistance in being able to actually leave the facility for treatment. The images of Wendy having to conduct interviews from behind her 5th-story window because her living facility refused to grant access to journalists that Wendy herself had reached out to are almost beyond belief. And pair that with the fact that Wendy, a woman who has not been convicted of any crimes, had to actually get a judge's permission to visit her father in Miami for his 94th birthday. And then, when she got there, she had to deal with the embarrassment of having her credit card declined because the court-appointed guardian allegedly gave her a credit card without any funds on it. Then, when Wendy does telephone interviews on The Breakfast Club, TMZ, and Don Lemon to speak the truth about her competency and her treatment under this court-appointed guardianship, the judge allegedly scolded Wendy and threatened to place her in an even more restrictive living facility. Which is why Wendy had to resort to throwing that scrap of paper out of the window so that someone could call the police to perform a wellness check on Wendy, which resulted in NYPD escorting Wendy to the hospital so she could have an independent physician evaluate her competency, only to have her guardian show up at that same hospital and, according to some reports, try to physically stop the evaluation. And after hospital lawyers intervened to allow the evaluation, of course the results are completely opposite of what her guardian has been telling the court for the past 2 years. And when Wendy and her niece left her living facility to have a celebration dinner that same evening, allegedly the guardian and facility called the popo in retaliation on them.
Wendy Williams' guardian and living facility allegedly calling the police because her niece took her to a nice restaurant is giving.
You shouldn't be spending your money on frivolous things. You should be saving it. That's our money.
It seems like people are out here just doing any and everything for the love of money. And Wendy definitely has first-hand experience of that, because not only do complete strangers have their hands in her pocket, but it was also recently revealed in court documents that the reason the guardian's foot is on Wendy's neck is because, just like the song says, someone suspected her son of stealing from his own mother. So you may remember that back in February of 2024, in the Lifetime special, it was revealed that Kevin Jr. has spent about $100,000 on Uber Eats. And in the TMZ special that just aired on Tubi, Harvey Levin read from the court documents that said, at one point, Kevin had intended to rent a boat for $15,000 using his mother's funds, but ended up renting one for $113,000 because the bank wanted him to have that. And in addition to that, he had also tried to charge over $100,000 for his rent in a luxury Miami apartment. All of these things contributed to Wells Fargo freezing Wendy's accounts in January of 2022, and eventually led to Wendy being placed under financial guardianship that same year, which recently turned into a medical guardianship, which has now seen Wendy locked up in a memory care facility with no visitors and only being allowed out 2 times in the past month. And although her son's actions seem to be the main cause of her current situation, Wendy believes that her son Kevin Jr. is a good person that has been influenced by other people.
Listen, my son is a really good person. You know what? Oh, God, I'm not going to cry about that. Oh, I'm sorry for cursing. Look, my son is a good person, but at this point, he is a horrible person to me. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's the way he moves with other people. You know what I'm saying? And what's going on with these other people at my apartment in Miami? What are you doing? Oh, you spent on what? He has a way of getting with, you know, a couple of other people. You know what I'm saying? My son is not the only one, you know what I'm saying, involved with my money. Look, all I know is that in terms of what I'm dealing with, and that this is still going on, because, you know, that's when my money got frozen at Wells Fargo. Thank God. No more money stealing from my son and the other people.
And I'm sure most of us can count on one or two fingers who those other people could possibly be. Particularly when you take into account some of those unauthorized expenses mentioned before, like the allegedly $100,000 in Uber Eats for vegan food. Especially when you consider another person who used to have a catering service and restaurant in Florida, which was Uber Eats and curbside only. And also, considering the fact that from his social media posts in the past to his current court cases, Kevin's father has been more than vocal about how much he feels he and his village contributed to Wendy's success, and therefore is entitled to infinitely reap monetary rewards from Wendy, most of which he had already squandered on mansions and expensive cars for his baby mama while he was still married to Wendy. So despite cheating on his wife for over a decade and allegedly using her money to fund his affair, where he bought the other woman cars, a mansion, apartments, businesses which failed, put her through massage school, subjecting his wife to public ridicule after the details of the affair were made public by Daily Mail, and despite fathering a child with this same woman after he told his wife he was no longer seeing her, which led to Wendy eventually checking herself into a Florida rehab during that difficult time, while her husband treated his baby mama to a Florida beach vacation at the same time. Despite all this, he seemingly felt that he still had rights to alimony after Wendy fired him as her manager and sent him divorce papers on the same day. This is a man whose entire attitude gives off.
So this ain't stealing.
An attitude that at the time incensed Kevin Jr. so much that he literally ended up putting hands on his dad, allegedly over those alimony payments. Because according to reports, just a little over a month after Wendy served her egregiously cheating spouse with divorce papers, he and Kevin Jr. were at a convenience store in West New Jersey, close to Wendy's mansion, where according to police reports, Kevin Jr. was in a verbal altercation which led to him calling his father a B rhymes with snitch word, which led to his father approaching him in an aggressive manner and putting his finger in Kevin Jr.'s face. Jr. then admitted to pushing his father, at which point they began wrestling, and his father received a bloody nose as a result of Jr. trying to remove himself from a headlock. A bystander intervened, at which point Kevin Jr. called his mother as he was getting in the Uber to leave. Now, after hearing the details, Wendy told Kevin Jr. to go back to the scene and file a police report, at which point Wendy made 2 911 calls and reported the incident, saying that she and her husband were going through a divorce and he had put her son in a headlock and screamed at him about money, basically accosting her son and throwing hands. Now, unfortunately, when police arrived, Kevin's father was the only one bleeding and proceeded to inform police that he never hit his son, and he only wrestled his son after his son hit him in the face, causing him to bleed. Now, after his father gave those details with his bloody nose apparent, Kevin Jr. was arrested and transported to the police station where he was charged and eventually released. His father refused to cooperate further with the investigation and did not allow pictures of his injuries to be taken. Later, he told TMZ that he would not be pressing charges or pursuing the matter legally, and that Wendy had brainwashed his son against him, and that things were not always as they appear. But a month later, Kevin Jr. still had to go into court alone, where he pled not guilty as his parents sat in the car. The case was continued, and 2 weeks later, during another hearing that this time his father attended while his mother was filming her show, the charges against Kevin Jr. were finally dropped. Now, fast forward 6 months later to January 2020. The divorce is finalized. Kevin's father allegedly gets a lump sum payout, half the profits from selling his New Jersey mansion, his cars and businesses. He's a beneficiary of a $1 million life insurance policy on Wendy. His coverage continues under Wendy's current health care plan. He gets $250,000 for a new home, and in return for his shares in Wendy's company, Wendy Inc., he gets over $37,000 a month in severance payments as long as Wendy is employed as a talk show host and making a salary equivalent to the $10 million a year she was making at the time. Meanwhile, Kevin Jr. is in his second year of college in Florida, where his father and Wendy's family stays, and Wendy is alone in New York making all the money. Until, at the end of that same year, her mother passes, and later the following year, Wendy takes an indefinite hiatus from her show due to various health issues that have Wendy being spotted out in wheelchairs and rushed to a psychiatric hospital in September of 2021. And being spotted in and out of various wellness centers before temporarily relocating to Florida to heal and be near her son, who weaned her away from all alcohol and had her eating healthy foods and being more active. Meanwhile, her ex-husband starts making comments like health is wealth and releasing vague details of Wendy's previous struggles. Now fast forward to January 2022, when Wells Fargo froze Wendy's accounts because someone was mishandling her funds, and it's soon discovered to be her son, which triggered Wendy being placed under financial guardianship of May of 2022, and even led to a judge threatening Kevin Jr. with arrest if he didn't return his mother to New York. And one can only question how a son can go from almost catching a case for going after the man who, on top of completely disrespecting his mom, then tried to add insult to injury by expecting her to pay for the continued disrespect, to now that same son being the one accused of taking her money without asking and putting her in a position where she now has to fight for her freedom even though she hasn't been convicted of a crime. To the point where a judge expressed that although Jr. apologized for past mistakes and inappropriate behavior, the court is not convinced that he can keep her safe and wouldn't willingly or unwittingly expose her to financial exploitation. Now, does anyone else find it interesting that when Kevin Jr. was arrested, his father accused Wendy of brainwashing their son against him, only to later have that same son's actions be the cause of him and his baby mama losing everything that Wendy's money paid for? Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.